Scott Morrison made his valedictory speech in Parliament today and we wish him well. He did great things as a minister, especially on border protection, and then as Prime Minister he won an election most pundits said was beyond him. I go back a fair way with Scott, working closely with him in 2009, my year of living dangerously with Malcolm Turnbull, and we both somehow survived. I've criticised Morrison for some of his judgment calls on that Hawaii holidays, on those secret ministries, and also for signing up to net zero by 2050. You'll hear a fair bit about today's speech, the cutesy Taylor Swift references and the emotion, but I want to focus on two important aspects. He spoke a lot about his faith and called for believers and non-believers alike to respect our Judeo-Christian values.
You don't need to share my Christian faith to appreciate the virtue of human rights. I'm not suggesting you do. But equally, we should be careful about diminishing the influence and the voice of Judeo-Christian faith in our Western society, as doing so risks our society drifting into a valueless void. In that world, there is nothing to stand on. There is nothing to hold on to, and the authoritarians and autocrats win.
Yeah, well said, and bravo for saying it. Liberal democracy, personal liberty, the rule of law, separation of church and state, these are all part of the crucial legacy of the Judeo-Christian tradition, and we forget this at our peril. Now, Morrison will be remembered in history for two major reasons. First, AUKUS. It's a grand plan. It'll take a power of work to deliver, but it could leave us with a modern and effective naval and missile defence capability and strengthened alliances with the UK and the US. Second, Morrison will forever be remembered as the Prime Minister who led this country through the COVID-19 pandemic, which is why this call to be sceptical about government as the solution to all our ills really jarred with me.
I suspect that much of our dissolution with politics today and our institutions is that we've put too much faith in them. At the end of the day, the state and the market are just run by imperfect people, like all of us.
Yeah, he's spot on, of course. The actions, rights and responsibilities of individuals in society should be trusted and respected at least as much as governments. But this was said by a man who increased government power to unprecedented peacetime levels during the pandemic, shutting down businesses, closing internal borders, locking people in their homes, arresting them for daring to walk in the park, forcing them to be vaccinated, arresting them for dissent, and all the rest of it. Our COVID response was over the top. And what was clear to many of us at the time has only been confirmed by experts in the aftermath. It was not scientifically, medically, ethically, or socially justifiable. Now, sure, none of this was easy and no one could have got it perfectly right. But we see yet again that debating all this is not a matter of political priority at the moment. Both major parties just pat themselves on the back over what they did to us. Listen to Albo's farewell to ScoMo.
If you had said prior to 2019 that a government, with the support of the opposition, would literally work with states and territories to stop people from leaving home, to stop social interaction, to stop the normal activity that we engage in this great country, that would close borders, not just national borders, but state and territory borders as well. You would have thought that was something of fiction, that would not be possible. And we shouldn't take for granted the fact that those decisions were made. And that required leadership.
You see, they talk about all of this on both sides as if all of it was the right thing to do. This is why we need a full royal commission into the pandemic response, because the politicians are pretending it was all okay. They don't want to confront the fact that they might have all overreacted. They prefer to continue the pretense that they did the only thing that could have been done, and they saved hundreds of thousands of lives. They pretend that Sweden doesn't exist. They pretend that Florida doesn't exist. We need to demand a royal commission to properly examine all decisions, all medical evidence, and evaluate all the costs of the pandemic response against whatever benefit they delivered. Only today, the Queensland Supreme Court has ruled that the vaccine mandates imposed on police there were unlawful because they breached human rights. This is a landmark ruling on these vaccine mandates right across the country that we have slammed on this program for years, with the support of medical experts, a handful of politicians, and the victims of the mandates. There are still hundreds of police, firefighters, nurses and other professionals who cannot get their jobs back because of these unnecessary, unscientific and unfair vaccine mandates. It's a disgrace. I'll speak later to a nurse who was sacked because of these mindless mandates. We need a royal commission now.